The San Francisco 49ers have officially released their first unofficial depth chart of the 2025 preseason. We'll get into it and why Brock Purdy is not a check down Charlie, but should he be? On today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us. Our core audience, we love you so much. And thanks for telling your friends about Locked On 49ers. We're seeing the numbers jump. Folks excited about the 2025 season. So whether you are new or old listener, we urge you to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. And Croc, we have a depth chart. That means football season is here. We got a football game this weekend, Croc. Saturday night, we've got a joint practice with the Denver Broncos that should be good fun for everyone involved as well. Players get to hit guys on the other team finally, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun starts to get a lot more real as well this portion of the season. And so let's talk depth chart and see if we can learn anything from this depth chart that is, and I must say it's important to mention that this depth chart is put together by and compiled by, it says right at the top, by the football communications staff for the 49ers. So this depth chart isn't Kyle Shanahan's depth chart necessarily, but I think it's done with a lot of insight into what is happening currently with the team. And I'm sure it is signed off on because the last thing Kyle Shanahan or Robert Saleh want is questions about something that's absolutely insane on the depth chart that they didn't even know was there. Right. So they know what this depth chart says. And I don't think there's anything that's too wild and crazy about this depth chart. And in fact, I think, anybody that follows the 49ers, whether their football communication staff or one of the coaches or one of our listeners, could fill up the offensive side of the ball with their eyes closed, I think, with who the starters are. And I think it gets a little bit more interesting when you start looking at the depth in the second string and the third string, maybe, for the 49ers on offense. But shouldn't shock anybody. Brock Purdy, QB1. You got Kyle Juszczyk at fullback, Christian McCaffrey at running back. Wide receivers, Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. And then left tackle to right tackle, we've got Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz, and, of course, at tight end, George Kittle. Zero surprises there, right?
Correct. No surprises on the opposite side of the ball. Definitely a lot more when it comes to the defense and special teams.
Yes, sir. When you look at the backups and that sort of depth, I think that's where most of the battles are on the offensive side of the ball, Croc, because any one of these players are one player away from being a starter and jumping up on this depth chart. At wide receiver, it's listed as Jacob Cowing and Russell Gage on one side behind Juwan Jennings. And then it's listed as Demarcus Robinson and Jordan Watkins behind Ricky Pearsall, which would be sort of the X and Z. And this is the stuff that I wonder if it's very sticky or, is this how things are going to go? Is Juwan Jennings going to play the X while Brandon Ayuk is out? Then Brandon Ayuk comes back and Juwan Jennings is now the number 3 guy because Ricky Pearsall is playing that Z where Deebo Samuel used to be, right? And then is Demarcus Robinson and Jordan Watkins just working in with Junior Bergen in the third string in the Z spot behind Ricky Pearsall, with Russell Gage and Jacob Cowing behind Juwan Jennings, with Tariq Owens in the third string with the X? Or are they going to be moving around and playing different spots? And Kyle Shanahan always says about the wide receivers that they need to play all 3 positions. And we haven't really talked about the third wide receiver position here and how that looks. So interesting that Cowing and Gage on one side and Demarcus Robinson and Jordan Watkins are all together kind of bunched in the second team, then with Junior Bergen as the third team guy and Tariq Owens on the other side as a third string guy.
And way in the back, they got my guy Isaiah Hodgins. I'm not a big fan of that. The placement of Isaiah.
He's too far back. He's with Robbie Chosen in the 4th string and Equanimous St. Brown. And is that just because they are the newest comers onto the football team and they just added them to the back of the roster? Again, this is a football communication staff. I have a feeling that the starting lineup is the starting lineup, but there's a lot to compete for, I think, with the rest of those guys at wide receiver. And we're gonna really know. Well, we'll know a lot because what the depth chart is how they line up and who goes out there first and where they line up in the preseason game. So we'll know how that is penciled in, and then we'll be able to watch those battles and watch guys compete and see where else they line up and how they perform in those preseason games. As Robert Saleh himself said about Upton Stout, he might have the inside track on the nickel job, but it's a long race, and it's very early in that long race. Still hasn't seen him tackle yet, because there hasn't been any tackling allowed. And we're going to see a lot more hitting against the Broncos this week, both in the joint practice and of course, in the game, which probably leads us to the defensive side of the ball, right, Croc?
Well, real quick, I wanted to go back to the offensive side. And
Okay.
are there any battles that you see that are kind of intriguing on that side? Again, it is easy to pencil in or write in what the starters look like. But, outside the starters, are there any just battles where you're like, you know what, I'm curious to see how this plays out?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of depth that is very interesting. I think running back Isaac Grendo's injured, so he's not going to play in the preseason game. Jordan James was nicked up. Will he be able to be out there this week against the Broncos? Is he the second guy up? Because on this depth chart, he's at the 3rd string with the other rookie and Corey Kiner, and it's Patrick Taylor Jr. that is next to Isaac Grendo in the 2nd string. So does Patrick Taylor come out first? Chris McCaffrey's not going to play in this preseason game, right? I can't imagine he's out there. And I think a lot of the starters won't be out there, especially after having a tough practice with that joint practice with the Denver Broncos this week. So is it, does Patrick Taylor walk out there first? Is he the first guy out there? Do they trust him more as a veteran to be in the right spot and do all the right things? Or is it Jordan James that's out there first? And there's Corey Kiner, Amir Abdullah. So there's definitely some battling for what that order might look like, especially if Isaac Guerrero is not able to go at the start of the regular season, and who's going to be the number 2 back, because he's going to have to play. And then again, you're one injury away from being the RB1 there. And then on the interior, I think there's a lot. There's Spencer Burford. They sounds like they really want to win the swing tackle job, and there's really not that much competition for him. Austin Pleasance is there listed at the 2nd right tackle, with Spencer Burford as the 2nd left tackle. You got Isaiah Prince, who just showed up this week. And so I think that's one where they want to see Spencer Burford play well and feel good about him as the number 3 tackle and the swing tackle. And then it's probably the interior guys on the offensive line would be really the main competition there, with Zakel, Matt Hennessy at guard and center. The rookies, Drew Moss, Connor Colby, Drake Nugent, the undrafted rookie from last year at center. And I think that's where kind of a lot of the jockeying for position will be: backup receivers, backup linemen, and backup running backs.
One interesting thing about Spencer Burford is, like, the 49ers, they've been kind of known as like a rehabilitation center for quarterbacks. You've seen quarterbacks go to the 49ers, do good, go elsewhere, make some more money, right? Some guys still in the league, Nick Mullins, guys like that I think people thought was just kind of fade away, and they're not. And heck, Jimmy Garoppolo may start for the Los Angeles Rams right now. Sounds like that back with Matthew Stafford's a little serious. But offensive line now, that's an area where guys have gone and gotten paid. And we talked a lot about Jalen Moore. You look at some of those guys. McKivitz felt like he was on his way out. And next thing you know, he's going to really kind of turn this whole thing. He's going to parlay this into a really good career for himself. Spencer Burford has an opportunity to do just that as well. A guy who obviously has played a lot of snaps for the 49ers at the guard position. Man, he has a big opportunity to be the swing tackle. And we always say this about Trent Williams. Like, he's going to miss games. It's just a matter of how many. And then Spencer Burford is a guy who steps in. If he can play well at tackle, this has to be the ultimate rehabilitation center for offensive linemen as well.
It's a huge role. Yeah, it's a huge role to be that backup to Trent Williams and be the first tackle up, because that's something that could start to really derail the offense really quick if Trent Williams goes out and the guy who's replacing him is not up to the task. So very important job for Spencer Burford. And then if you put that tape out there and you look good at tackle, this is a tackle-hungry NFL. And as you mentioned, we've seen that as witnessed by the contract for a lot of guys. Dan Moore, Jalen Moore, guys get a lot of money just because the team believes that you have the capability to start at offensive tackle. And there's not that many of those guys around. So, yeah, big preseason and big season altogether for Spencer Burford and Colton McKivitz and what they might get paid in the free agent market. Next, let's talk defense and let's talk special teams. Who's on the depth chart and where? And some very interesting stats that tell a story about not only Brock Purdy, but the San Francisco 49ers passing game as a whole. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Summer sports, they're in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high-stakes soccer action, or preseason NFL football, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? And if you don't get excited enough about preseason football, every weekly line is already up at FanDuel. You can bet on all 17 regular season games for the San Francisco 49ers right now. Tons of prop bets as well. Bet on 49ers to win postseason awards. Bet on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. Tons of new daily promotions every single day that keeps things fun and exciting. And you can track your favorite matchup. And how about same game parlays as well? Maybe you feel like the momentum shifting in a baseball game or in a football game. You want to get in on that? You can at FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. All you got to do is open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, Croc. Let's go to the defensive side of the football here. And we've talked probably the winner, I would say, of 49ers training camp out of everybody is rookie third rounder, number 100 overall, Upton Stout, nickel corner. Maybe part of it is because some of the other corners have been injured and he's just had a real chance to shine and look like he's better than a lot of the other guys on the roster already as a rookie from basically day one. But he is not on the officially unofficial opening San Francisco 49ers depth chart for preseason week number 1. It's actually the free agent addition cornerback Trey Brown that's listed with the first team at nickel corner with Upton Stout with the second team. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because if you go to ESPN.com, they have a 49ers depth chart up as well. And on there, they have Upton Stout listed as a starting nickelback. So I wonder, where's the disconnect where ESPN has it listed one way? And I mean, where'd they get that information from? I'm assuming someone on the team organization, but now you're seeing a switch there. So is there something that's happening? And this tends to happen at times with NFL teams. Fans see things one way. The coaches, who may not have anything to do with this, but the coaches see it a completely different way.
I think there's two things going on. One is exactly that. And it could be that you have to unseat the veteran. So, okay, rookie, you've looked nice, but go win the job. Because if it's a tie, it's going to go to the veteran, and we trust the veteran. We know what the veteran can do, and the veteran might be making more money, right? In Trey Brown's case, he's not really a highly paid veteran, and in fact, you might argue that just the resources spent on a third-round rookie in Upton Stout is actually more, and so that Trey Brown would have to actually win the job over Upton Stout. And plus, Trey Brown's new himself to the 49ers, even though he's an NFL veteran. But I think
real quick, I was going to say, typically it's more that way. If they can find a younger guy that comes in and he's even with a veteran, they're going to kick the veteran to the curb.
Yeah, because they're cheaper. Yeah, save a little money, right, where they can. I don't think Trey Brown would get kicked to the curb and cut unless he's just really not good. And it's weird because there was not a lot of reports of him last week in camp, based on versus earlier on in training camp. It was kind of all about Upton Stout, and then just hearing Robert Saleh himself saying he has the inside track, which is telling us that it's Upton Stout's job right now to lose for that nickel corner spot. And I think the ESPN people are like us and kind of utilizing all the information and making an educated guess on what the depth chart is. But for the PR staff and the communication staff that puts this thing together, they're like, well, here's the veteran player. He took the first reps in OTAs, he's number one right now. And so that could change very quickly. So that one I take with a grain of salt for sure. And I'd still bet on Up and Stout being the number one nickel corner. We'll find out if he appears in the game ahead of Trey Brown on Saturday. Mykel Williams, he's a rookie that is with the first team. And in fact, he is the only rookie listed with the first team on the entire football team, including offense, defense, and special teams. So it's Mykel Williams, Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott, Nick Bosa. Again, it's the veteran guys on the interior of the defensive line with the first round pick, number 11 overall. Mykel Williams being that the guys who started at that defensive end spot last year aren't on the roster anymore. And then it has Bryce Huff behind Mykel Williams with the second team. The interior guys are listed as Kalia Davis and Alfred Collins on the interior, Sam Okuwanu behind Nick Bosa at defensive end, and they've got my guy CJ West all the way back here on the third team behind Kalia Davis, number 99, next to Evan Anderson with the third team defensive tackle, and then the ends on the third team, Jonathan Garvin and Robert Beal Jr., and then Sebastian Valdez, Bruce Hector, Jalen Allen, who was added this week, and Bradley and I are the fourth string defensive linemen on the officially unofficial 49ers depth chart. I think the communication staff might have done CJ West dirty on this one. But he is a rookie and he was a fourth round pick. So I can see why they would put the veterans' names ahead of him. Again, we'll see on Saturday how these guys come out onto the field, and then we'll see again how they play in those situations and if that changes by preseason week number 2, if it is in fact this depth chart.
Did I miss it, or did you talk about Kevin Givens' injury?
So Kevin Givens is potentially out a very long time, and I don't know. They might have. In fact, it says as of August 5th, 2025. That was Tuesday. Kevin Givens, we already knew about his injury by Tuesday. So maybe they don't know the extent of what that injury is, or maybe they just wanted to make sure they put Kevin Givens' name out there where it belonged on this first depth chart, because nothing officially roster move wise has been done with him. But it's not looking good for Kevin Givens. He might be out for a while.
Yeah. I think CJ West is just kind of where they have him listed. That may be one of the more just kind of like surprising. But again, this just could just be a dummy depth chart. And hey, push rookies back, push veterans up. We'll make our decision. We don't want anyone to know quite what we're thinking about any of these younger guys, because you never know what you may have to do to try to stash a guy or hide a guy. Everybody's going to watch the film regardless. So NFL teams, it's interesting how sneaky they try to be. But CJ West being back there, a guy who I think has had a really good training camp, little surprising.
And to be honest with you, I'm sure the meetings are still going on with the 49ers actually trying to decide how they're going to deploy all these players. So Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan would probably not even be able to tell you exactly right now today, even what the order is going to be for all these guys, who's going to play, who's actually going to be available to play because of injury, who's maybe a little bit dinged up that they might want to hold out. That conversation might be figured out all like say Friday before they let everybody know what the plan is. Luke
even more like surprising than what's going on with defense is probably more special teams, where when I was at training camp practice, I was watching the guys who were catching punts, and it was always kind of like a very similar order. You had like Ricky Pearsall, the first guy up, and then you see, who was it? I texted to you and had it listed, but Ricky Pearsall was one of the first guys up. Junior Bergen was back there. He was returning punts as well. And one more guy.
It was number 1, number 17, and number 86. So that was the rookie Jordan Watkins would have been back there.
Jordan Watkins. All right. But you look at this list, and we'll see who's actually back there. But they got Jacob Cowling, clearly, who hasn't been able to be out there because he was dealing with an injury. I think that's why you maybe don't put too much stock into the depth chart.
Yeah. Jacob Cowling is supposed to be back sometime soon. I think, was it the Raiders game that Kyle Shanahan said? I'm getting all these hamstrings and calf injuries and all these things mixed up. So I can't remember exactly what the date was that Kyle Shanahan said that they're hoping to have him back for. It might have been the second preseason game. But yeah, Jacob Cowling's listed as punt returner number 1. Again, because he played on the team last year. Is that why? Because the other two guys are the rookies, Junior Bergen and Jordan Watkins. And Ricky Pearsall not listed, even though he's been catching punts in camp. And then at kickoff returner, Junior Bergen is the number 3 guy behind Isaac Garendo and Patrick Taylor Jr. with Dallas Flowers as well, the 4th kickoff return guy. So a completely different group for kickoff return and punt return there. Junior Bergen, so he's 7th round wide receiver. If he's not going to impact at all, let's say he's, however many wide receivers they keep on the roster, like 6 or 7 wide receivers, and he's the last one of those, and he's only returning punts and not kickoffs, is that even worth a roster spot? How good of a punt returner do you have to be?
I think you have to be really good. Like, you have to be a difference maker. You go back to 2017. Ooh, usually I remember the older names, not as good with remembering some of the newer names. But the 49ers had a returner who made the team based on punt returns. A rookie out of Oregon State, return guy, not the biggest guy. I had a brother that played on Oregon State a few years later.
Bolden.
Yes, Bolden.
Victor Bolden?
Victor Bolden. There you go. Victor Bolden. So, I mean, he made it feel like solely because of his special teams ability, and he had some big returns in preseason. So, but just watching the film, watching who they are, you watch Victor Bolden you watch him in preseason, you watch him in college, he just looked more dynamic. So to see that translate over to the NFL, is like, oh, of course, as opposed to Bergen, who looked like have good vision at the FCS level, like, will that change the NFL? That's much faster. It's not like I was doing this in the SEC. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. One more note on the depth chart at linebacker, and I want to talk about Brock Purdy because there was a wonderful stat put out there by who was it? Warren Sharp. And you got to check out Warren Sharp's book, by the way. A lot of great information in that book. And I've been kind of looking through it here, and I got some 49ers information to bust out here before the season starts. But one of those things is throws to receivers at or behind the line of scrimmage. And if you watch 49ers football, you probably know where Brock Purdy is about on that list. If you don't watch 49ers football, you probably would guess that Brock Purdy's on the complete other side. And we'll talk about why that is and maybe if it should change next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It is the best time of year. Football is back. Preseason games are happening. NFL kickoff is almost here. And that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. Drafts are happening. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. I'm playing on Yahoo. I have forever. And whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league, you can too. And there's now 28 more ways to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness for you to join. Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. And to kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. And yes, Wink already sent me the request to join our new Guillotine League to go alongside our regular league with all our league mates. And this season, it's just around the corner. So now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you like the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. So we've talked a lot this week about the Sam linebacker spot and kind of just not really knowing who's going to win the spot and who's really even up for that spot. Because we've talked a lot about middle back, or we talked a lot about Will linebacker, and we know that it's Fred Warner at middle linebacker, and Tatum Bethune, not surprisingly, is the number 2 inside middle linebacker, Mike Backer, for the San Francisco 49ers with the undrafted rookie Stone Blanton, number 50 with the third string at Mike Backer. D. Winters listed as the first Will, then it's Nick Martin, and then it's Jalen Graham at Will. Jalen Graham not listed at Sam. It's Luke Gifford, number 57, brought in, thought to be brought in as a core special teams player. They also plays linebacker. He's listed number 1 at Sam. Then behind him is Curtis Robinson, who's been banged up quite a lot recently. And then free agent signee Chaz Surratt, also listed at strong side linebacker. So this is one that I was interested to see the names on the list. And I was kind of surprised once I saw it, what the names were and what the order was. And I think there's just a lot to be decided here at linebacker outside of Fred Warner.
It's scary. It's a little scary. Now, right now, we're banking on D Winters doing very well. And he's had a terrific camp. It's like, all right, just continue to be that person. Because if you're not, you have a lot of question marks about the 49ers at the linebacker position, and you'll be banking more on potential and upside as opposed to anything with what these guys have done outside of Fred Warner, of course.
How about Jason Pinnock, free safety, Jair Brown, strong safety? And this is one that I was going to be watching a lot because if Jair Brown is the strong safety, he's not going to keep his job when Malik Mustafa comes back. If Jair Brown is the free safety that plays alongside Malik Mustafa long-term, then they've got to figure out who's going to be the strong safety in the interim before Malik Mustafa, who's thought to be coming back at some point this season from his ACL surgery. So Jason Pinnock is kind of, I think, not surprisingly, I think the leader to be the free safety brought over from the Jets with Robert Saleh, and then Jair Brown at strong safety. And so they view Jair Brown as a number 3, potentially backup safety, if he is indeed the strong safety, unless they want to flip those again and put Jair Brown next to Malik Mustafa when Mustafa comes back. So that was one of the things I wanted to see on the depth chart. Also, what I want to see in games, does Jair Brown kind of play both? And then, who's behind him? They got Marcus Siegel, number 2 free safety, then Derek Canteen and Jalen Mahoney. And then behind Jair Brown, the strong safety is Richie Grant and Surin Neal.
Kind of a scary looking secondary. Not quite sure. I mean, I am confident with Renardo Green and Deommodore Lenoir.
Yeah.
Those are guys going to hold it down. And it sounds like Upton Stout, he's trending in the right direction as well. So if you have those 3 guys, you should be solid. And then I'm not as mad with the veterans with Richie Grant, Jason Pinnock. I can't wait to see Marcus Siegel and what he does, because obviously a ton of potential, and finally drafting a safety that I think has a really big upside. 49ers do a really good job of coaching up their safeties, especially being able to run that cover 4. So, yeah, I'm curious to see just kind of how it all plays out and the continuity those guys build together, because it seems like there's been a lot of injuries. Guys kind of banged up a little bit, going in and out of the lineup during training camp. You got to play together, get that communication down, get that camaraderie down with everybody on the back end.
Croc, are you surprised that Brock Purdy is darn near at the very bottom of the list of the percentage of passes thrown at or behind the line of scrimmage in the 2024 regular season?
Oh, man, we saw that. And I think a lot of people said, look, see, he's not a check down guy. And I went to the comments and I messaged you and said, 49ers aren't a check down offense. Now this is the tag that people have put on 49ers offensive players. And it's just not true. And I say 49ers offensive players, quarterbacks. It's just not true. It's not true for Brock Purdy. He is not a check down Charlie, right? It is not true for Jimmy Garoppolo. It wasn't true for Nick Mullins. Matter of fact, I bet if you were just to, I mean, you can go all the way back to 2017. Nobody has thrown more passes or less passes at or behind the line of scrimmage than the 49ers. They don't throw a high percentage of screens. Up until they got Christian McCaffrey, they weren't throwing the running backs. So, yeah, Deebo Samuel would get a screen here and there. But for the most part, yeah, they have their quick game. But they're hitting those intermediate throws, like you like to say, aggressively intermediate. They're hitting those throws. They're making those attempts. But at or behind the line of scrimmage, that's just not happening. And maybe it should. Maybe there should be a little bit more screens and, tunnel screens, bubble screens now, right? You think of guys like Aaron Rodgers, and if he sees any kind of space between the defender and Devontae Adams when they were playing together, he's raising up and he's throwing the ball to him right now at the line of scrimmage. So is that considered a check down, or is that just, this is an extended run play for us? We just want to get the ball in Devontae Adams' hands, see if he can make a guy miss. Even if he doesn't, he's going to pick up 5 to 6 yards, which is as good as a run play. 49ers just don't operate that way.
It's funny you say, what quarterback is most like Brock Purdy in the NFL? You wouldn't think, it's Jameis Winston, right? But Jameis Winston's the only guy below Brock Purdy on the list. Anthony Richardson's right below him, 0.1 percentage point fewer throws at or behind the line of scrimmage in the 2024 season than Brock Purdy. So only Anthony Richardson basically tied with Brock Purdy, and then at the very bottom it is Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston is one of the most aggressive guys, throws a ton of picks and just lets it rip down the field. But here's the thing with Kyle Shanahan's offense, it was very similar with Jimmy Garoppolo as it is with Brock Purdy. Neither one of them big-armed guys, great downfield throwers, and Kyle Shanahan doesn't dial up a lot of downfield throws, and when he does, it's very planned, and it's designed to get somebody open and spring somebody and have this downfield throw. I would say that Brock Purdy is a little bit more aggressive than Jimmy Garoppolo, especially the later version of Jimmy Garoppolo, clearly, but aggressively intermediate. That's what it is. So there's not a lot of downfield throws either. And I think that's what people see. And they're like, well, you're not a big arm quarterback. The Niners don't chuck the ball down the field very often. And that's also true, which means, okay, well, if you throw the ball downfield fewer than just about everybody and you check it down fewer than just about everybody, where's the ball going? It's going over the middle of the field every single time. And could the 49ers benefit from a little more variance and maybe push it down the field a little bit more, maybe checking it down a little bit more, and then would that open up the part of the field they want to attack in the middle of the field? I think it could benefit. Like, have they gone too far down the aggressively intermediate rabbit hole, Croc, is my question.
One of the knocks on 49ers receivers is the inability to create separation. And I think a big part of that is teams are sitting on routes. They're sitting on routes and daring the 49ers to throw the ball down the field. We're going to be very aggressive on everything underneath. And in turn, that's making it more difficult for the Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, some of these guys to create that separation that people want to see. I mean, I think it was a stat last season where the 49ers had the least amount of separation yards per route ran in the NFL, or near the bottom.
Yeah. And also teams want to be close to the line of scrimmage against the Niners anyway to stop the run, because they know whether it's Christian McCaffrey or any running back, the 49ers are going to be a very balanced offense, and they're going to run the ball as well. And so teams kind of dare the 49ers to throw deep, whereas it's the exact opposite. And you look at some of the better passers in the NFL, and they are the check down Charlies. Patrick Mahomes is second behind Tua Tagovailoa, 30%. He checks it down twice as often as Brock Purdy. But does he get that tag? No. But teams play Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen's 25%. They play those guys very differently because they dare the 49ers to make the big boy throws, and they want to stop the run. They want to be close to the line of scrimmage. When they play Patrick Mahomes, when they play Josh Allen, it's the opposite. And they're like, please throw it short. And we're going to play this cover 4 shell against you and try to take away the deep stuff so you don't carve us up and light us up, and we'll let you take the easy stuff. So that's what they do. And so it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. So it doesn't mean you're good or bad because you're at one spot or another on the list. It matters, what's the result of the offense. And there's a lot of factors that go into it and a lot of reasons why. And I wouldn't mind if Brock Purdy climbed up this list a little bit.
Yeah. So there you go. There's 2 really good answers there. One, the 49ers, they don't check the ball down. They are aggressively intermediate. And teams are defending them that way. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, the safeties are so deep. They have to kind of check the ball down and throw more passes to the flats. Like, they're getting depth. Remember when Patrick Mahomes, it was a regular season game, and they kind of highlighted it on that show, Quarterbacks. So this must have been the season that they won the Super Bowl. But they played the 49ers in the regular season, and Patrick Mahomes was appalled at how the 49ers were defending him. He was like, hey, the safeties are tight. Like, they're tight. Yeah, they done messed up now. We're going to go up top. And then, boom, they went up top. And he was just so used to not seeing that. Like, teams defend them, especially when they had Tyreek Hill. And that might be the case for Tua as well, where I have Tyreek Hill, I have Jalen Waddle. They're playing the safeties deep over the top of these guys, so now I have to throw more screens. So they're finding any which way to just get the ball into Tyreek Hill's hands. They throw a ton of screens, quicks, nows to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle's hands. But if you let those safeties come down, even Tua will take shots. So everybody's being defended a little differently. And then everybody's offense may be a little different. But I would be curious to see if Kyle Shanahan, which maybe he'll never build his team this way, But if he had a Tyreek Hill and he had Jalen Waddle, would you see more checkdowns with him as well? Because teams are playing so soft with their safeties and playing a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it all feeds in, right? So it's the way the defenses are playing. It's the way that your talent is, your quarterback's strengths, the way Kyle Shanahan wants to develop his offense. And then it's the personnel he brings in at receiver. The 49ers don't really, they want the guys who win in the ways that Kyle Shanahan wants them to win that benefits that style of offense. And so it all kind of works together. If you draw a line right in the middle, I would say there's probably more good quarterbacks on the top of the list, which means checking it down more than there is at the bottom of the list. But again, that might be more because of the offense in general, and teams are more afraid of those quarterbacks, so they stay back more. But yeah, one thing is clear. Brock Purdy is not a check down Charlie. That is not a part of Kyle Shanahan's offense, and it hasn't been even before Brock Purdy. So yeah, we can definitely put that one to bed. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Back tomorrow talking 49ers joint practice, and then the last podcast before preseason game number 1 against the Denver Broncos. So make sure you are tuned in and subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.